Well, the holiday shopping season, that's well behind us. Many of us still trying to recover, though, financially from all of that we paid for over the Christmas holidays, and we're into a new year. Experts say the shortest month of the year is the perfect time to tighten up our spending. Local financial professional Scott Braddock from Scott Braddock Financial is here to share ways to tackle what he calls Frugal February. We're going to unpack that in just a minute. We do want to make sure that you know that he is also taking your financial questions. You can just text us those questions, 336-379-5775. All right, Scott, let's talk about it. Why is February so good to be frugal?
Well, you already alluded to the main point behind Frugal February, which is it's the shortest month of the year. Now, this year we have an extra day. However, it's still the shortest day of the month. So the task doesn't seem quite as daunting if we want to try to save money by cutting back on our spending.
Okay, and we're towards the end of the month, but that doesn't mean that everybody's off the hook, because Frugal February can slide right into I'm keeping my mind on my money March.
Well, for sure. Right now, what folks are realizing is some of those really fantastic New Year's resolutions have fallen by the wayside. However, those credit card statements from the holiday spending are still coming in. So we could take ideas from Frugal February and carry those throughout the entire year.
Okay, so let's talk about what things we should focus on Frugal February and beyond.
Right. So the first thing that I would encourage folks to do is to create a budget. Go ahead and take a look at how you're spending your money. And the best way to do that is to review those checking and saving statements and see where your money is going. Oftentimes, when you're watching your money, you'll find ways in which you can cut back on your spending, which is the next idea here with Frugal February, is to cut back on your spending. And planning ahead is the best way to do that. Plan out your meals and plan out your shopping trips. Have an idea of how much money you plan to spend. And the best way to do that is just take cash with you. And you can only spend what you have if you go about it that way.
So I see lots of planning on there, and sometimes we're not good at that. So even if we're not good at planning maybe every single meal in a week, we can at least maybe plan 3 of those meals in a week, so we're not trying to maybe do something for every 7 days.
That's exactly it, right? We don't need to plan out the entire month, but if we can plan out a few days, that really helps. It's a game of inches often. And so just the habit of looking how you're spending money and how you can cut back on non or unnecessary expenditures is the best first step in finding how you can save more of your hard-earned money.
I think a lot of people think, well, I don't want to have to do a budget because that means I'm going to have to live within that whatever. But if that sometimes means that they've never done a budget, which means that they don't really know how much money that they're spending or that's coming in or whatever.
Sometimes folks just have a mental block when we say the word budget. It's scary, it's frightening. So if we need to call it a spending plan, if that helps just create some energy towards watching how we're spending our money, then let's do that. It's very hard to see how you're spending money if you're not watching it. So that's where the budget's going to come into place. Whatever you want to call it, you can even call it saving for retirement.
Okay, speaking of saving, what should we be doing with our savings?
Well, the first thing, which is very important, is make sure that you have a savings account saved up for the unexpected. I often am asked, Scott, I have some money set aside, I want to invest. And I always want to make sure that they have that safety net with that emergency fund account first. You never know when something's going to come up. And once you start saving and you start investing, you don't want the chance of a curveball coming in and throwing you off your long-term goals. So that's the best advice that I can give when it comes to saving money, is start with that emergency fund.
And so often the emergency fund is kind of like, well, if I need it, I'll just put it on a credit card.
Oh boy. Well, that tends to become habit forming. And the next thing you know, you're paying more for things because of interest. Now, if you're smart and you're paying those credit cards off each month, then I say, hey, take advantage of the points they offer, really take advantage of the credit card companies. But, if you're not doing that, you're paying more for what you're buying, and it's stinging your financial pocket there.
Gotcha. Okay. And I did see on one of your graphics there, it said, be easy on yourself. Give yourself a little bit of grace. I think that's sometimes really hard when we're like, but we want to do this and we want to do it this way.
Right. You know, for anything to stick, it has to fit your lifestyle. And so just getting started and working your way through, give it a week or two and just see what different opportunities you find yourself. And again, it really needs to fit your lifestyle. Have some fun with it. There's some ways that you can save and watch your money and have some fun with it. You can build in a reward system. If you can manage to save a certain amount, for example, then maybe you go out to dinner.
All right. So what advice do you have to stay motivated during February and beyond?
Well, the best way to stay motivated is to focus on the long term. Now, what you really need to look at here, and I try to impress upon folks, is if you're too nervous, you're too concerned about the here and now when it comes to the stock market, it comes to the economy. Oftentimes, what that leads to is poor human reaction, poor human behavior. You make bad decisions, and a long-term plan keeps you focused on those long-term goals and objectives. You don't get so nervous in the short term, and that's the best way to meet those long-term goals and objectives.
Okay. All right. So we've been talking about budgeting in Frugal February, but we can talk about 401ks. We can talk about IRAs. We can talk about investing. We can talk about all of those things and much more. Get your questions answered. 336-379-5775. We'll be back in just a few minutes.